For people that had already come of age, like in the 80s and 90s, and were kind of in tune with how the media was reporting on the city of Chicago outside the city, I mean like the national media, you remember that the neighborhoods that were getting by far the most press back then were two specifically neighborhoods where there were groups of housing projects, Cabrini Green and Robert Taylor. Those by far got the most press of any blocks in the city as far as the violence that they were producing. Robert Taylor was actually slightly more violent than Cabrini, but they were both. We were having, at that time in Chicago, around 1,000 murders a year, and it was going up everywhere in the city, like I've said in previous videos. But those neighborhoods particularly were like gang strongholds, and I haven't really seen anything equivalent to that since then, as far as the amount of control that gangs exercised over a particular neighborhood. But in this day and age, with the younger generation coming up, there's one neighborhood in particular, as you guys already know, that gets by far the most press outside of Chicago, and that is the Parkway Gardens housing complex down by 64th and King Drive. This started to happen around 2012, 2013, when Chicago's underground gang rap scene started to gain a lot of attention. And the face of that rap scene was one, at that time, 15-year-old rapper, Keith Kozar, Chief Keef. And because of the songs, Oblock was getting attention. It was, the Parkway Gardens was nicknamed Oblock. I know most of you guys already know, for their dead member, Odie Perry, who got killed. Okay, like most blocks in Chicago now, it's named after a fallen member. So Chief Keef basically made Oblock famous. And the Chicago papers started covering the neighborhood a lot. They had been covering it to some extent before that, but they were saying, I remember, that Oblock was the most dangerous block in Chicago. Some people were claiming this. I even saw a newspaper claim it. People were doing like these Oblock challenges where they would try to go to Oblock and make it out alive. And this was, like, as a lifelong Chicago resident, at the end of the day, I would just kind of shake my head when I would see this because, one, they were making a game out of this. But two, anybody that's been a cab driver or an Uber driver or Lyft driver or delivery driver or anything like that in the city of Chicago where you have to drive for a living and where you have to, become familiar with like the entire city, knows that that particular block in the front of Oblock off of King Drive in rush hour, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon to like 6 o'clock at night, King Drive in that stretch is like bumper to bumper traffic. That's not a block that you would take like going south if you want to go to anywhere in that area because you're not moving. The second thing is that there's pretty much always police in that area. It's one of the most policed areas of the city. I mean, King Drive, like in the front of Oblock. So the front of Oblock is really not the dangerous part. You got all this foot. I mean, in the middle of the night, the whole city's dangerous. But I mean, like during rush hour and stuff, you got all this traffic on King Drive. You got the police right there, sitting there at the gates. The police are kind of protecting the GDs too, because they're always bending their blocks too. But the police are always just like basically sitting right there on King Drive. The dangerous part, as far as Oblock is concerned, is actually off of like Calumet and the street behind the gardens, which is where a lot of the ops, when they try to attack it, they come from behind it. So that's actually the more dangerous side. And when I would see people going past Oblock, it would typically be on King Drive because it's the address is known as being off King Drive, but that's not really where their enemies try and approach them from. But the other reason why I would kind of shake my head is that Oblock, as everybody knows, is from there. Oblock is really not just one block. It's like an entire it's like 5-6 blocks as far as like area. And really, I mean, the entire area around there is kind of one neighborhood. People from outside the city always ask me about Oblock, and I tell them, like, there's actually areas of the city that are way more dangerous than Oblock. And by dangerous, I mean in a few ways. The statistics, the numbers don't always tell the story because, for instance, there's a lot of areas where, the body count might be low when you look at a map Okay, but that's because everybody in that neighborhood knows about the gang war that's going on there, and they're staying in the crib away from that block. So I'm going to put up some maps here. Okay, this map, as you can see, this is the homicide shootings in Chicago, and this is pretty much useless because there's so many over the entire city. This is from like the last 20 years. It just completely covers up the entire map. The neighborhoods where they colored in by the numbers, the darker, the higher numbers of murders and shootings, and you can see that cluster out west. And now I'm going to put up this chart here. This is the most relevant statistic that I'm going to show you guys because this is not overall numbers. This is numbers per 10,000 residents, so the rate, okay, of murders and shootings. And as you can see from this chart, there's no other neighborhood even close to Garfield Park. Oblock is located in a neighborhood called Woodlawn. It's like between Woodlawn and Inglewood. Grand Crossing is right there too. But as you can see, the numbers for Woodlawn and then the numbers for Garfield Park. Garfield Park is about 4 or 5 times the numbers that Woodlawn has. Okay, and as you can see also, that matches up with what's there on the map. So the first neighborhood, and this is a neighborhood you guys have heard me talk about before, Costner and Monroe, Garfield Park. That, that whole area around there, so that block particularly, and then basically, 2-3 blocks to the east and west, and then 2-3 blocks to the north and south. So most of the streets there, have the names of presidents over there: Jackson, Adams, Monroe, Madison, and then in that stretch, east-west right there, this is going to be, I would say, probably the hottest area of the city. Okay, as far as like just the danger level and the numbers. Okay, you do have gang-related violence, but then there's also a lot of just like random violence. Not too far from where I almost lost my own life. It's pretty dangerous over there, man. The high school that area feeds into is called Marshall High School. There's actually several. You can go to Marshall Crane, Michelle Clark, Manly, Phoenix Military, and I was a substitute teacher in that area for years. So, I would lose students, hear about students getting killed, their brothers and sisters getting killed that lived in this neighborhood. There's no police, okay, protecting anyone behind gates in that neighborhood. You're just kind of out there on the street in a residential area. And when guys want to come down there, nobody's going to be there to stop them. Neighborhood number 2. This is one that you guys may, even people on my channel for a long time, may not really be in. Well, you're in tune with it, but like you may not think of this as a neighborhood. The neighborhood that they refer to as Fuller Park. Okay, this is really like the stretch between like around 35th, 37th, down to about 51st off of the Dan Ryan on the south side. Okay, those exits right there and the blocks that lead off of them, there's a lot of pretty violent gang wars that are in the neighborhoods that extend off of that. So you got the THF, the 051 Young Money. Just to the north of that, you got 757, OBN. There's just a lot of really like bloodbath gang wars going on in that vicinity. And that stretch off of the expressway is where it's very easy to get caught. Like I said, those expressway shootings, okay, guys following their ops onto, the Dan Ryan, those ramps right there are risky. Okay, this is an area where it can be real easy to get caught at a light. Third block, and everybody I think is going to agree with this if you know what's going on the south side, 79th and Ashland. Okay, this is an area like where there's really 3 gang wars going on. You got the 2 factions that kill the ward, okay, who are both like in their own wars. Okay, and then you also got Terror Dome, the Stones, Bang Bang Gang, they call themselves. They're right there. And then Gville is like across the street, okay, which is GD's. And these are all pretty hot wars that go back years. And this is like the gun line. This, 79th and Ashland is like the border area. I would say that this is more dangerous than Oblock because of the same reason why I was talking about Fuller Park. Fourth neighborhood, and this is a neighborhood that you guys have probably already heard me talk about. Did a whole video on this. That a lot of people, even from that aren't on my channel, aren't subscribers, had tuned into. The area around 69th and Western, okay, and then like 5-6 blocks to the west of that. Okay, and then like north and south about 5 blocks. Okay, so like the 5-block area around like 69th and Western. Okay, this is an area like I told you guys in that video that's known as Face World. And then, the group of sets, which is known as Cross Western, is right there. M Block, okay, which is for Maplewood, is right there. And this is an area where there's like several wars because Face World is divided up into sets. And, each of the sets has their own beef. Okay, and that area right there, there are police there. It's like a residential area and it looks quiet. But, the people who are in those neighborhoods who claim them are involved in some beefs that extend to other neighborhoods not in that particular area, and they can just randomly get caught anywhere. Last but not least, guys, a lot of people might disagree with this. Chicago Avenue between about Central Park all the way out really to about Pulaski. Okay, this is the area it's like the border of West Humboldt Park and Garfield Park. It's more like West Humboldt Park, past Orr High School, okay? This is an area where there's been a long-standing war between vice lord factions, the traveling vice lords and the conservative vice lords. I've covered this on a bunch of videos. There's also a bunch of other sets that branch off of Chicago Avenue. Chicago Avenue is busy, but in certain hours of the night, it's not super busy. And if you've ever been on Chicago Avenue, okay, like around Pulaski or around Central Park, at like 11 o'clock at night, midnight, you don't even need a description from me about why this is dangerous. Man, you're going to see everybody and his brother outside. Okay, gang members just hanging out on the block, turning up, sitting out there as human targets. The police, they're like kind of up and down there randomly. There definitely is a police presence over there, but it's like they're not just sitting in one spot. They're like up and down the Ave randomly. And if you want to get your kill off, it's very easy to do that. You just wait till they're out of there and then you just pull up and blow. And guys are getting caught out there all the time, man. So because of the sheer number of gang members that are visible out there on the corners, these dudes are out there like all the time. Okay, I mean large crowds of them with women with them and everything, the whole bit. There's a lot of areas, I hate to call it mass shootings because it makes it sound like, those stuff that happens at the churches and the schools. But as they count a mass shooting, 5 or more victims, there's a lot of mass shootings that take place in this area. And out west, guys, the other reason why this is more dangerous than Oblock, the stuff you see with the GDs and BDs down there on the south side, they're pulling up mainly like with a couple guys or 3 guys with pistols. Okay, out west in this particular area, they're pulling up with something big, and spraying up the whole crowd with like choppers. So, it's for that reason and for the other reasons that I named, this area is more dangerous than Oblock. And also, again, because out west there's a lot of drug violence and a lot of like robberies and stuff. So you guys let me know what you think in the comment section, man. If you are visiting Chicago from outside the city, I highly recommend that if you're going to go around the city and, just look at it, do that with somebody who is who's a longtime resident of the city who knows the patchwork of the city. Because Chicago is the type of area where you can be in an area where, it feels safe, and then you're very quickly in an area where you really can't be there by yourself. And I see a lot of tourists getting robbed and killed, because they don't know what's going on. They're acting the way that they act in their home country or their city where they're from, and they're doing stuff that you can't do in Chicago. Being here in Miami, I've been here for 2 months now, I see people doing stuff that back in Chicago you cannot do. I mean, and that's a whole nother video. I might make a video about that, like the differences, but the way people live here, and the stuff people do here, I'm not calling Miami sweet, but I mean, I have seen this. Like, I live in one of the, so-called hot areas of Miami, and I just see people doing stuff that back there, man, you better not do it. You know what I'm saying? So I might make another video on that. But anyways, you guys let me know what you think in the comment section if you agree or disagree. But anybody who's a longtime resident of Chicago, I think is going to agree with the neighborhoods that I put up there as being more dangerous and risky than Oblock. So you guys let me know what you think. It's your boy Shy News. I'm out.